on this edition of Sightings.
I feel metal.
With hope running out, police know that psychic Noreen Rainier represents Joe Lewis's best hope of ever finding his missing brother.
We're willing to try anything.
Even the mayor of this Brazilian city saw the smoking UFO hovering low in the sky on the outskirts of town.
It was almost at the top of that eucalyptus tree.
A number of other witnesses saw a whole lot more.
I'm convinced that bodies were recovered down there.
During a ghost investigation inside a New Jersey home, a malevolent spirit responds on tape. Independence Day made movie history, but has it affected attitudes about life in space?
It is the talk of the UFO research community.
And a look at just what the coming millennium might mean.
Welcome to Sightings. I'm Tim White. In 1995, Sightings answered a plea for help from a family in Piscataway, New Jersey, who felt that they were being haunted by negative energy inside their home. A Sightings team conducted a thorough investigation, but since the 2 visits to the house, the haunting activity has only gotten worse. The family is still desperate for help. They want the evil spirits out. Before the fires, the fear, and the threatening voices, Tony Adams' home was her sanctuary, and she wants things back the way they were.
I just want answers to why these spirits are here and to help them move out of here.
Tony's not worried for herself, but for granddaughter Alyssa. Tony believes the 3-year-old is a medium for supernatural forces that speak to the child through the TV. And now there is a new baby in the house.
It's been going on for too long, and the intensity that it is at this point could harm the babies.
The entire family is unnerved by the strange messages that Alyssa says are coming from the monsters in the TV. They could have shrugged it off as childhood fantasy, Tony says, were it not for the spontaneous fires, episodes of psychokinesis the entire family claims to have seen, and a chilling blue fog in the middle of summer.
It's unnerving at times, you know, when you feel them right over you.
It seems nothing has changed since Sightings' first visit at the Adams home in 1995.
I would say, Alyssa, who are you talking to? She'd say, Bobby. And I'd say, where is Bobby? And then she would point to him.
She would say, Susie. Susie's coming, you know? And Bobby's bad.
She seems to be a conduit.
During Sightings' original investigation, paranormal researcher Al Rober attempted to record the voices of Bobby and Susie on audio tape. It was a long shot, but Rober did record 2 distinctly different human-like sounds.
The first voice was a female voice, and she comes on the tape saying he's coming upstairs. And a little farther in the tape, there was a very sinister sounding male voice saying the baby is staying, as if he was demanding the baby is staying. Are you upset that Amanda's leaving?
For a psychic's perspective, Sightings called upon Jane Doherty, who sensed an evil spirit behind the haunting activity.
I think of all the cases I've worked on, this was the most frightening in many aspects because you have the poltergeist aspect and you have some real danger going on because of the child.
Doherty theorized that the home had been a barn and that a man had once been badly burned there. And that man, said Doherty, was still inside, in spirit, haunting little Alyssa.
The big bears with dark-faced.
Mm-hmm.
And they jump on me.
She's calling him the bear monster now. Now, I finally put that together, why she's saying that. Supposedly, if this person was burned, I guess their skin would look like a monster. And what did the bad bear do?
He scared me. And he said, oh, want me.
During the original investigation, both Rober and Doherty suggested that Alyssa and her mother, Yolanda, should move out.
The only thing that worries me is that if my daughter tries to move and take the baby, that he's going to become violent.
That interview in 1995 was prophetic. Yolanda and Alyssa did move out, but the haunting continued, and now Tony's new granddaughter, Amber, seems to be the target.
She was lying on the couch, and I turned for a minute to continue to fold the laundry, and as I turned around, she was wrapped in the couch cover, and she was struggling to get out of it. She couldn't have done it herself, so someone did do that.
And when Alyssa comes to visit, Tony feels the negative energy in the house increases dramatically.
When we were in the kitchen together, a knife that I was cutting with went from the counter to the floor, and nail polish remover was open and lying on the floor, all things that could potentially hurt her or put in her path.
The stress of waiting and wondering when the next attack will come has taken its toll, especially after an incident just a few weeks ago.
I came home one night and I came in with the baby, and I got about halfway through the house and I noticed that it smelled really heavily of gas.
The situation could have been deadly if the kitchen window hadn't been open, a window Tony distinctly remembered closing before she left the house. Who opened that window? Tony believes there may be spirits who have come to protect the family.
One spirit I believe to be my aunt. I believe she's the protector over the family and keeps the other ones in line as much as possible.
And with nothing more than a reel-to-reel tape deck, microphone, and blank tape, Al Rober recorded new anomalous sounds.
A voice jumps on the tape, female voice, and she's saying, "I hope we can talk." Farther into the tape, Tony is talking about her aunt who had passed on. And she finishes the statement, and the voice comes on and says, "Take care." Do you recognize any of those voices?
Yes.
Which one, or which ones?
The one at the end is my aunt. It was my aunt's voice. And not hearing a person's voice that you're so close to and then hearing it all of a sudden is an emotional thing.
Now it's personal, Tony says. She can no longer wait and wonder if the spirits will move on. She has to make it happen.
My greatest hope at this point is to be able to allow my aunt to move on and for the other spirits to be at rest and go where they're supposed to, because they don't belong here.
Tony Adams believed that the haunting activity might go away if she could communicate with the spirits she believed were haunting her family. She wanted a psychic to help and specifically asked for Peter James. Sightings helped bring the two together, and we'll have Peter's findings next in part 2 of this report.
Psychic Peter James attempts to succeed where other psychics have failed.
You don't belong here. Move on now.
More than 5 times now, paranormal investigators have recorded inexplicable noises and strange voices inside the New Jersey home of Tony Adams and her family. Tony has asked sightings to help her contact the negative spirits that she believes are haunting her home. Tony is hoping Peter James can make it stop. Despite 2 previous sightings investigations, unexplained haunting activity continues to plague Tony Adams, her daughters, and granddaughters.
I was lying in bed the other night, and I saw a white mist on one side of the bed and one on the other side of the bed. And I just lay there for about an hour and watched them, thinking maybe they were trying to tell me something.
The mist seemed to be emanating from Tony's bedroom closet, an area that psychic Diana Abbott had earlier identified as a paranormal hotspot.
Whoa.
Is it like you just stepped into the refrigerator?
Yes, but it's more than that.
Investigators who have visited the home believe there are 2 supernatural forces at work here. One, the destructive spirit of a man who had been burned on the property. The other, the benevolent spirit of Tony's aunt, who is fighting to protect the family.
She came here originally to give me a message and found there were spirits here that didn't belong, and so she stayed to protect us.
Sightings brought in renowned psychic Peter James, who instantly sensed a connection between the male spirit and the circumstances that had angered him.
Was there ever a fire here? Because I look at the house and I see smoke and I see flames.
Even though he knew nothing of Alyssa's encounters with the entity she called Bobby, Peter sensed that connection too.
Do you know anyone whose name began with an R, first to last name, lived here prior to you? Was there a male R? My plan of attack is that I plan to communicate with this male entity that I feel is here.
Peter James interviewed Tony.
How long have you been aware of this activity?
I'd say probably for a little over 3 years.
3 years.
He developed a strategy for communicating with the spirits.
We'll get it resolved, one way or the other. Trust that.
He wanted to connect with the dangerous spirit first.
I will be guided by my own instincts, but when I make contact with this entity, I will become a little confrontational. Hello? Hello? There's something in here. Hello? Who's there? Identify yourself. Your name is Rob. He's definitely in the bedroom. And whoa, something just, hello? Easy, something just touched me. Something just grazed my hand. There is no doubt in my mind that there is definite anomalous activity here, and quite a bit of it. There's a Robert here, and I do believe that Robert died tragically, violently.
It was in the bedroom that Peter felt the negative energy most strongly and claimed that it was Robert, the spirit Alyssa called Bobby, who was fixated on the children.
Can you speak to me, Robert? Talk to me. Tell me why you're here. You've got to stop terrorizing this family, or you must move on now.
Then Peter felt another spirit was emerging.
I feel he's still here, and I'm also feeling behind me there's a female.
Was this Tony's aunt reaching out from another world?
Tony showed me a photograph, and there was a striking resemblance. I would venture to say that the other female is her aunt.
Once he had identified the source of the haunting, Peter looked for a way out for the spirits. He felt the doorway between their world and this was in Tony's closet.
You don't belong here. Move on now.
He has to understand that this is my house now. This is not his house any longer. He has to understand there's a better place he's going to go to than where he is right now.
After his tirade, Peter said he felt the negative spirit withdrawing.
I feel a wave of sadness suddenly coming from him. His vibrations, his energy is almost childlike now.
Peter also felt the other protective spirit was moving back into her world as well.
I now feel like that female I spoke of earlier is behind me. There's no doubt in my mind that the activity will begin to diminish right away.
Now it's a question of time. As Peter James successfully exorcised the dangerous forces inside the home once and for all, has he released the spirit of Tony's aunt so that she may rest in peace? Everyone is hopeful.
Having done what I did will get rid of the activity. So in that sense, I think my work is done here.
I think the baby will be less frightened now. As far as this house goes, I think that this investigation hopefully is over and everything will be resolved.
Since Peter James' psychic investigation, the entire Adams family reports feeling a sense of relief and peacefulness. While Tony is cautiously optimistic, she says she's also learned never to underestimate the power of paranormal forces. We'll keep you updated in future reports.
Next, is this proof of life on the moon? Ufologists react to Independence Day and the paranormal internet.
Here are some of the stories Sightings is following in the news. Richard C. Hoagland, world famous for his interpretation of seemingly man-made structures on the surface of Mars, has expanded his research to include another celestial body, the moon. At a recent news conference in Washington, D.C., planetary researcher Richard C. Hoagland presented what he considers to be proof of ancient artificial monuments on the moon. As evidence, Hoagland offered allegedly purloined NASA photographs that he believes reveal engineered structures on the lunar surface. Hoagland is best known for his groundbreaking theories about artificial pyramids and a human effigy found on Mars in 1976. Now, Hoagland says, similar structures have been found on the moon, and NASA knows it. He charges the space agency with a cover-up of galactic proportions. Apollo 14 astronaut Edgar Mitchell is one of only 12 men who have actually walked on the moon. Does he believe there is any validity to Hoagland's claim?
If the structures on the moon are as he suggested, we should have been able to see some evidence for it. It should not be so difficult to dig all of that out. There was certainly no evidence for it at our site that we could observe, and no evidence on any of the other flights that we could observe. There certainly was not a cover-up, as has been suggested by Hoagland and others. We were eager to find anything we could find that gave us some insight as to what was up there.
Mitchell may not agree with Hoagland's theory, but he does believe in the existence of extraterrestrial life. That story on the next Sightings. From cyberspace, everything you always wanted to know about the paranormal, and you don't have to be afraid to ask. The World Wide Web now has tens of thousands of sites dedicated to everything from directions to the black mailbox at Area 51 to newly declassified government documents to the best way to treat a vampire bite. On a website called The Science of Feng Shui with Lillian Tu, Sightings found a good overview and detailed instructions for those interested in this ancient form of Chinese geomancy. Lillian Tu is a Harvard-educated writer whose books on feng shui are bestsellers in Asia. And now, through the internet, Tu's feng shui system is available worldwide. Here, Tu demonstrates how to design your home to maximize the flow of good energy, called qi. And there are suggestions on where to place furniture for good luck, prosperity, and happiness. You can access the Science of Feng Shui with Lillian Tu at www.asiaconnect.com.my Lillian Tu. From Hollywood, it was the biggest movie of 1996. And now, the invasion is about to hit home with the video release of ID4 on November 22nd.
We're gonna stop them! They're gonna kill us all!
The Fund for UFO Research has received dozens and dozens of phone calls as a result of Independence Day.
Richard Hall, chairman of the Fund for UFO Research, says that the success of Independence Day has been both a blessing and a burden to the serious study of UFOs.
I personally think it's very ironic that a fairly far-out science fiction or science fantasy movie gets attention to UFOs when serious evidence doesn't. But it is the talk of the UFO research community.
Ufologist John Carpenter specializes in the alien abduction phenomenon and is concerned that many moviegoers will mistake science fiction for science fact.
It presents a negative, hostile alien presence, and all of our research has not shown an alien hostility that plans to take over the Earth.
But renowned UFO researcher Stanton Friedman, one of the original investigators of the Roswell incident, believes that the success of ID4 can only invigorate the UFO community.
I think that a lot of people will recognize that the enormous impact it's had, just that many people who went to see the movie and were paying good hard money to do it. I think that may encourage other people to dig into the real UFO stories, to dig into Area 51, to dig into what happened at Roswell. And serious investigation of any of these things is to the good, not to the bad.
I'd like to tell people who see this movie to now get the real facts about UFOs and don't confuse the two. There are real UFOs, there are real possibility of real aliens visiting us, and that's what we need to study.
That's what I call a close encounter.
We'll have more stories from the news next time. Now, here's what's coming up on Sightings.
Can this psychic lead police to a man who's been missing for 2 years?
I'm driving for a short distance, and then something happens, and I see him in the air.
And was there a UFO cover-up in Brazil?
For 2 years, the chief of police in tiny Williston, Florida, compared every unidentified body found in America with dental charts belonging to Norman Lewis, one of Williston's favorite senior citizens. Mr. Lewis had disappeared without a trace in 1994, and his was the chief's most baffling missing persons case. None of the bodies ever turned out to be that of Norman Lewis. Other leads didn't pan out either. And the chief began to realize that traditional police work just wasn't getting the job done. Williston, Florida is the kind of town where everybody knows about everybody else. And everybody knew that 76-year-old Norman Lewis was retired, an avid outdoorsman, and a little bit unpredictable. It wasn't unusual for him to just grab his fishing pole, jump into his pickup truck, and take off. But it was very unusual for Norman not to come back.
In the beginning, it looked like any other routine missing persons case, especially when you're dealing with a senior citizen or an adult.
Joe and Virginia Lewis were worried this time. Joe's brother Norman had left behind all his cash, his ID, and his medication.
We couldn't find anything missing. Everything seemed to be there. His billfold, all of his identification and medication, and he had asbestosis and glaucoma.
Of course, as the days turned into weeks and the weeks turned into months, it became pretty apparent that this wasn't your average missing persons case.
The Williston Police Department pulled out all the stops. They tagged his bank accounts, prescriptions, and sent out a countrywide bulletin with a picture of Norman and his truck. For Chief Slaughter, Norman was beginning to feel like family.
I see the family every week. I see his brother Joe and his sister-in-law Virginia, and we'd be passing on the street or in the same restaurant. And although they knew that I'd tell them the minute we had any news, every time I faced them, I could see that searching look in their eyes, like, is there some information for us? Is there some news, And it's really tough when you're that close to people and you're a small-town police chief and they're looking to you for the answers and you don't have them.
Why did Norman disappear? He didn't have any enemies. He wasn't carrying anything valuable. He was alert, and he knew the woods like the back of his hand. 8 months after Norman's disappearance, the case was handed over to investigator Brian Hewitt, who had just returned from a special police training seminar. Mr. Lewis became his highest priority. Hewitt started over from the beginning, re-interviewing everyone who had had any contact with Norman. Early on, the investigator began to feel that Norman's truck might be the key to unlocking the case. Find the truck, find Norman Lewis.
People would call in thinking that they possibly had seen him or the truck, and then I'd track that down and another dead end.
Well, it was difficult, very difficult. I mean, you continually was thinking about it. You're thinking, what did we overlook? If we had overlooked anything, is there anything else we can do? And of course, that was very frustrating.
The first anniversary of Norman's disappearance came and went without a single break in the baffling case. Now, Hewitt decided in desperation it was time to try something unorthodox, to try a psychic detective he had met at the police seminar more than a year before.
I talked it over with the chief, and he apparently had some successful dealings with psychics in the past.
I've always been a bit of a skeptic, and I'm sitting here in rural Williston, Levy County. I know that, there's going to be some question about stepping out of the mainstream investigation and dealing with the psychic. It's a very religious community. I have more churches in town than I have fast food restaurants.
This was something new that we could try, and we was willing to try anything.
And so, on July 17th, 1995, investigator Hewitt drove the 2 hours from Williston to Orlando to consult with police psychic Noreen Rainier.
I only work with the police. I don't need to see you. I don't need to see the scene of the crime. Let me touch something off the body. I prefer metal. I prefer a watch, a ring, an earring, a belt buckle.
Lewis had given me a couple pairs of his shoes and his wallet. And I spoke to her on the phone, and she indicated that those items would be fine.
I'm going to find Norman.
Rainier uses a paranormal technique called psychometry. By handling some of Norman Lewis's personal effects, Rainier believes she can tap into residual psychic energy that will lead her to Norman.
Numbers. 21. I feel miles.
She gave us the numbers 45, 21, and 22. I remember those three specifically.
I see brick. Don't know what it's associated with, but I just feel the brick very strong. It appears to be a bridge. I feel metal around me. I feel plants.
She talked about railroad tracks.
I'm driving for a short distance, and then something happens, and I see him in the air going downward.
Should be very simple. There's railroad tracks, the bricks, there's a bridge.
I'm seeing from above, and it looks like there's branches or trees or something below there.
Investigator Hewitt put all of Rainier's clues together, used some gut instinct of his own, and came up with one word: quarry.
He was spending a lot of time, I think, going out and checking the quarries or lime rock pits to see if he could get the one that seemed more logical. And he was, I don't know what all he was doing, bless his heart. He'd be out there in the brambles and whatever. It's a wonder he didn't get hurt himself.
I walked around probably 30 quarries, climbed up and down cliffs, and cut my way through growth, and it was quite an adventure. Once I determined that 80% of the elements that she mentioned were in that location, I was pretty much convinced that that was the spot.
Brian Hewitt put his hunch on the line. He convinced Chief Slaughter that it was time to call in a Sheriff's Department dive team to search for Norman Lewis and his truck.
The dive team made their search and came up empty-handed. A lot of people, and maybe even myself included, would have said, all right, we tried, but Brian wasn't that way. He said, look, I know we've got the right spot, but we're just not using the right techniques. So that's when we turned to the Navy, although I don't think we'd ever gotten them here had they known that they were acting on a psychic's tip.
The elite naval diving team later said they wouldn't have come if they'd known that it was a psychic tip that had brought them there. The team said that they were driven by the knowledge that Norman had been a career Navy man. One of their own was missing.
I met them the first day they were in. Then they said, if there's a truck in here, we'll find it.
When we found the vehicle, Joe was there. Joe was up on a cliff.
And that's when Brian came up and told us that they'd found the truck. And I asked him, I said, is he in it? And he said, yeah.
It was a sad day because, you know, obviously Norman was deceased, but on the upside, it was, you know, finally over, get a good, decent burial, and the family could go on with their lives, and we could kind of close it out and basically go on with ours.
2 years after he had disappeared, Norman could finally be laid to rest. The Williston police had used Noreen Rainier's clues of bricks, abandoned railroad tracks, and a bridge to pinpoint the quarry where Norman had drowned in his truck. And what of the numbers that Rainier divined? 45, 21, 22. It turns out that the quarry where Norman was found is located just off State Route 45. His truck was found exactly 2.1 miles from his front door, and finally the calendar date on Norman's diving watch was stopped on the number 22. The Williston Police Department invited Noreen Rainier to work on the Norman Lewis case because they had nothing to lose. But there are a lot of families searching for missing loved ones who do have a lot to lose. If you decide to work with a psychic detective, please make sure that you do it with the cooperation of local law enforcement and never give a psychic detective any money up front.
Next, experts are calling it the most significant UFO encounter since Roswell.
This could be the straw that broke the camel's back, so to speak.
Flying saucers, reports of alien bodies at the scene, a government cover-up of monumental proportions. Put it all together, and you have two of the most intriguing cases in the history of ufology. That's right, two. Obviously, the Roswell incident of 1947 is one, but there is another almost identical case, and it's happening right now in Brazil. Vittorio Paccaccini is one of Brazil's leading ufologists, a tireless investigator who has spent a lifetime researching thousands of UFO sightings throughout Brazil. But despite Paccaccini's best efforts, Brazil has never gained recognition as a major UFO hotspot, until now. The sightings began early on the morning of January 20th, 1996. Paccaccini rushed to Varginha in eastern Brazil, where he took testimony from cattle rancher Eurico Rodrigues de Freitas. De Freitas claimed that he had seen a large and seemingly damaged saucer hovering at treetop level. It had panicked his herd.
A noise was made by the cattle and it got my attention. It was 1 a.m. and the object passed through here.
So what exactly did you see? Tell me the details.
Details? Well, it was covered with smoke. It was a big object about the size of a small bus, and it hovered for 40 minutes about 5 meters off the ground.
Paccaccini tried to corroborate De Freitas' account and found more eyewitnesses, including the mayor of a neighboring town.
It was an object almost the same size of a small bus. It was rectangular. I could see it had 5 lights. It was almost at the top of that eucalyptus tree.
There were also reports that the local fire department had been called out to investigate the appearance of a strange humanoid creature on the outskirts of town. Varginha's fire department is also its animal control agency and routinely rounds up all kinds of wild animals that stray into populated areas. But what they captured on the afternoon of January 20th was unlike any animal they had seen before.
The creature had been on a slope toward a wooded area, and children had been throwing rocks at it, probably because they didn't know what it was and were a bit frightened of it. The firemen didn't have any trouble capturing this creature because it was somewhat dazed, perhaps from being hit by the rocks. This creature was then carried off by the military.
Throughout the day, the fire department and reportedly the military began to respond to calls from frantic citizens who were seeing more humanoid creatures. Based on the times of the calls and the distance between sightings, Paccaccini believes that there may have been as many as 5 different creatures. Most of the sightings were fleeting glimpses, but these young women claim they saw much more.
They were coming from work, they were cleaning somebody's house, and then they decided to make this shortcut. And all of a sudden, they just saw that creature, you know, leaning against the wall, you know, bending down. They got really scared. They thought it could be the devil.
Lilian and Bacarina, I would like you to see this picture and see if it's close to what you had seen.
See. They were going to arrive at 2 o'clock, and it was already 2:45, and they hadn't gotten home yet. So I was really worried, and I went to meet with them. I got off my street at the corner, and I met with Liliana, and she was very nervous, crying a lot. And then Katia and Lakia were coming. After I had calmed them, they told me, "Mama, I'm really scared because I think I saw the devil today."
Based on their testimony, the creatures were dubbed alien beasts and linked to the UFO sightings. The media began to demand answers, but in this case, Brazilian officials had very short memories.
Did you see that kind of animal that was captured months ago?
I was on holiday.
But is there anyone who can talk about it?
No, nobody.
But didn't you have any friends that were working here that day?
I was on holidays. What I know is what you know. And what is it? I don't know.
However, Paccaccini claims that a high-ranking member of the military told him off the record that an alien creature was taken into custody.
They took it to Humanitas Hospital. Many different doctors, over 15 of them, were in that place. Intelligence people from the army. You know, that creature had this horrible smell. One of the doctors came over and, you know, grabbed the creature's chin like this, opened that little slit, and using tweezers, he grabbed the tongue and pulled it out a little bit. It looked like a black ribbon, or some lizard, a tongue or something like that. Many people saw that. We have the statements recorded. And then he released this and it went back immediately.
According to this same anonymous source, at least 2 humanoid beings were captured and examined at Humanitas Hospital. They both died a short time later while in military custody. Paccaccini claims his source told him that Brazil was not the only government with an intense interest in the creatures.
One of the military witnesses indicated that the United States government not only alerted the Brazilian military that this object was coming down, but that several American officials had showed up and were on the scene to help direct the process secretly.
I was quite impressed with the depth of investigation done by Mr. Paccaccini.
Nuclear physicist Stanton Friedman was one of the original investigators of the Roswell incident.
I'm convinced that bodies were recovered down there. The government made a substantial effort to shut things up. And that thanks to the very hard work of a number of investigators down there, the story is coming out bit by bit.
The striking similarities between the Varginha sightings and the Roswell incident have not escaped UFO researchers. Information on Brazil is all over the internet, and this time ufologists vow proof of extraterrestrial contact won't slip through the World Wide Web.
This is a very big story. It's recent, a lot of people involved, medical, military, some serious investigation, the press has gotten involved. This could be the straw that broke the camel's back, so to speak.
Since our investigative team in Brazil filed this report, UFO sightings have increased dramatically. There has also been another sighting of a so-called alien spotted in a wooded area near Varginha. Sightings will bring you more information on the UFO activity in Brazil on future programs.
Next, on December 31st, 1999, the world will discover what a difference a day makes. Are you ready for the next millennium?
Welcome to the end of the millennium. But before you start partying like it's 1999, Sightings has prepared a series of reports on the implications, prophecies, and problems that may come our way when the calendar turns over to 2000. Consider Sightings Millennium Watch as your survival guide for the 21st century. Predicting the future of planet Earth is ancient history. Nostradamus did it, so did the ancient Egyptians, and Native American tribes have all predicted specific dates when significant events will rock the foundations of humankind. But our fixation with the millennium is strictly New Testament.
There are various ways to conceptualize the attainment of the millennium. The more common view is that the millennium will be brought about catastrophically.
According to Dr. Wojcik, many people believe there is a catastrophic link between the millennium and the apocalypse.
Generally, these beliefs assert that the contemporary world is so evil, it's corrupt, it's irredeemable by human effort. So you need some kind of divine, supernatural transformation of the world. And then a new perfect world will be created after the contemporary world is destroyed.
The Book of Revelations established 1,000 as the magic number, the number of years that Christ will rule after Armageddon. This convinced early Christians that the second coming would arrive in the year 1000, and many ominous and, to their mind, inexplicable events seemed to support their apprehension. At the close of the 10th century, there was a total solar eclipse, a catastrophic plague, and the eruption of Mount Vesuvius. But when 1000 arrived without incident, the year 2000 became the new focus for prognosticators.
The prophets have indicated that we're going to see
a thermonuclear war in the Middle East that will drag the whole world into it.
Hal Lindsey has been particularly influential since the early 70s, and his interpretations of the last book of the Bible very much focus on a one-world government and the possibility of a nuclear holocaust, a cataclysmic type war stemming from a conflict between the forces of Antichrist, the evil forces, and the resistance, as it were. It's a very scary scenario.
Doomsday scenarios like this one have kept generation after generation looking over their shoulder for the end of the world. 400 years ago, Nostradamus linked the millennium and doomsday. And the Maya civilization, which disappeared mysteriously 1,000 years ago, left us with a calendar linking the year 2012 and Earth's demise. While he doesn't believe the world is coming to an end, millennial scholar Robert Howard does acknowledge that the world will be different on January 1st, 2000.
When you look at a date that's, got a bunch of zeros after it, suddenly, I think everyone will feel a little bit, off balance by that. Instead of having like 1955 or some reference point, suddenly it's empty. It's like a clean slate. And so whenever they're faced with the unknown, I think people become uncomfortable.
Despite this uncertainty, or perhaps because of it, record numbers of people are seeking spiritual enlightenment as the 20th century comes to a close.
People are realizing, as they're faced with the new millennium and the uncertainty that comes with that, I think people are faced with, again, a need for spiritual symbols.
Dr. Lauren Artres is finding that this symbol, a 13th century labyrinth from a French cathedral, has had a powerful effect on visitors since it was installed at Grace Cathedral in San Francisco.
This is an ancient tool that has been lying in the archives of many religious traditions, dusty and forgotten. Walking the labyrinth has really changed my life. I found a profound way of being able to meditate as we look and walk into the next century.
The concept of the new millennium as a fresh start is gaining a positive foothold among people around the world. Some have turned to the skies. In Brazil, reported apparitions of the Virgin Mary are on the rise. Many people are adopting a more Earth-friendly lifestyle to ward off the potential wrath of Gaia. And UFOs are being touted as friendly harbingers of metagalactic peace and harmony.
The message that the aliens are giving us, and this is a message that recurs in millennial movements, is that there has to be renewed faith, renewed hope. People have to change. We're destroying the world. We're destroying each other. So some sort of transformation has to occur throughout humanity.
It's not humanity we need to worry about, say technology experts. We'll survive the year 2000, but it may be Armageddon for our computers.
People are predicting maybe 90% of computer software and hardware will not be able to handle the 2000 date. There is the potential for there to be massive system-wide failures. Your web browser to your bank account could all become part of a massive computer crash.
Other scientists warn that this techno-disaster pales in comparison to what will happen on May 5th, 2000, when a rare planetary alignment could trigger global catastrophe.
The loss of life is going to be tremendous, with land sinking and rising and tsunami and great storms as a result of all of these things. Volcanoes will be going off that have been quiescent for thousands of years.
But for every doomsayer, there is someone espousing a positive outlook for the next millennium.
People are realizing that the sun exploding and destroying the Earth in some infinite future is not as satisfying as other possible beliefs. People are going to believe what feels right to them or what makes sense to them.
The fact that these types of beliefs have existed forever indicates that probably it won't happen. The world's not going to end in the year 2000. There's so many conflicting apocalyptic traditions. Not all of them can be right, I guess.
Will the new millennium trigger apocalyptic social and geological changes? Or are we at the dawn of a new age of enlightenment? Sightings will explore these theories and more as we continue to bring you Millennium Watch reports throughout the coming year.
If you've had a paranormal experience, please write to us at Sightings. Sightings can also be contacted at America Online at keyword sightings. Download images, sounds, and QuickTime clips from Sightings episodes. On the internet, access information about sightings and the paranormal at sci-fi.com/sightings.
Until next time, remember, no mystery is closed to an open mind. For Sightings, I'm Tim White.